How you doing, Trench?
I'm back.
That the standard narrative has holes in it.
And the Quran, there's only one Quran. There are no various versions or whatnot. It's one standard copy of the Quran across the Muslim world.
That the standard narrative has holes in it. That's what I'm
And the Quran, there's only one Quran. There are no various versions or whatnot. It's one standard copy of the Quran across the Muslim world.
That the standard narrative has holes in it. This issue of ahruf and qira'at has troubled the ummah from the very beginning of times. Nothing new. Which is why I never brought this topic up myself. You will not find one lecture of mine about this issue. Which is why I never brought this topic up myself. You will not find one lecture of mine about this issue.
Quran, people find so confusing. The topic is that of the various recitations of the Quran.
This issue of ahruf and qira'at has troubled the ummah from the very beginning of times. Nothing new.
People find so confusing the various different ways of how to recite the Quran. And when we say the various different ways to recite the Quran, we are not talking about different voices or different styles. We're talking about slight differences in pronunciations, slight differences in letters, slight differences in harakat. In other words, if you were to compare two printed Qurans, you're going to see differences between them.
Which is why I never brought this topic up myself. You will not find one lecture of mine about this issue.
And this is something that many people are unaware of and many people have heard but are not fully familiar with, especially those who have been exposed to some of our brothers who live in Algeria or Morocco or other North African countries. They recite the Quran in a slightly different way. Not just a voice or not just a speaking style, but also changes in letters and words and harakat.
I don't like these idiots, and they are idiots, wallahi, because they're the ones who caused this. In this issue, they're utter idiots who did something haram. And I don't like saying this. This is not something you discuss amongst the masses, ya akhi.
You know, I'll say the first thing that really just to me crossed a line was his first interview with Yasir Qadhi. I mean, if you're familiar with my channel, some of my older videos, I've been very critical of Yasir Qadhi. I personally think that he has said things, he's made certain stances so clear that his foundational understanding and perspective of Islam is incorrect. That whenever somebody of knowledge, somebody who's a student of knowledge or somebody who's involved in da'wah, for them to give him a platform, for them to try to cover for him or try to excuse some of the completely blatant statements of misguidance that he has spewed, I find that to be extremely problematic, to say the least. It's different when you're just, your average Muslim. You might like Yasir Qadhi and watch some of his lectures. I mean, I'm not going to look at somebody like that. They say, hey, Sajid, I watch his lectures. So I'm not going to think about them the same way I would think about somebody who should know better. Somebody who should really understand the problematic things that they're doing by giving somebody who is spewing this misguidance a platform. But after Yasir Qadhi clearly showed he has been poisoned by the Orientalists, that he's reached a new Einsteinian level of knowledge. He had that Ya'juj wa Ma'juj lecture, which was just a complete disaster of a lecture. And then Muhammad Hijab had him on and praised him and gave him a platform and tried to be sympathetic towards these things and excusing these things that Yasir Qadhi's propagating. So to me, that was clearly oh, no, subhanAllah, what is going on here? And then fast forward, after Yasir Qadhi then goes on to teach these Aqidah courses after having praised, the Orientalist universities and the Western thinking and shown how he's been so harmed by it, then he's teaching these classes with Orientalist texts, advanced Aqidah with no prerequisites, teaching books from Kufar. Like, it's amazing. Then Muhammad Hijab has him on again. And this has to be probably the most damaging podcast, I think, to date in regards to the Durat and the destruction it caused. And it just really goes to show that when you have a platform and you're reaching potentially hundreds of thousands of people, it's really a big deal who you give a platform to, what you talk about, what information you put out there. Because Yasir Qadhi came on this time, and subhanAllah, if people couldn't tell from his clear language about his usul being messed up, we've just seen him progress and just expose himself. But then he goes on to Muhammad Hijab's platform and starts giving the preservation of the Quran question. Like, I'm speechless. I mean, not only did that happen, but both Muhammad Hijab and Yasir Qadhi consciously, after the fact, posted it and advertised it. It wasn't like it was a slip of the tongue on live television, like they were live streaming and they got caught up in the moment. No, they recorded it. They uploaded it. They advertised it. I mean, if this doesn't show you the absence of hikmah, of wisdom in somebody's da'wah, what can I even say? Ever since that podcast, subhanAllah, those of us who are involved in da'wah, like myself specifically, I'll talk from my own experience, the amount of comments I get from Christians, from people who are against Islam and they want to sow seeds of doubts in the minds of Muslims, over and over and over again, they use speech and quotes from Yasir Qadhi, from Muhammad Hijab's podcast, to try and do that. It's like every single day on social media. So for that podcast to put a question mark on that for people, I mean, the damage it caused, subhanAllah, it's beyond words. If you can't internalize and understand how horrible of a thing that happened, then I can't explain it to you. And I have to make one thing clear, because a brother, he just literally messaged me and said, you have to be so careful even talking about this topic because it's been something that has been so weaponized by the kuffar. Before Yasir Qadhi ever came out and said anything about the Quran, I knew his foundation is messed up. I literally made videos warning people against him because it's clear once you have such messed up foundations, it's only going to get worse if you keep down that road, which he did. So somebody quoting Yasir Qadhi to me to try to prove something means nothing. It's very clear the Quran has been preserved. Yasir Qadhi having doubts about certain things or whatever it is that he even said, whatever he himself believes, means nothing to me. He is not somebody who I get my deen from. He's not somebody I would recommend anybody get their deen from. If you've seen some of my videos on the matter, I've made that quite clear, and I've brought forth some clear proofs and arguments as to why that's the case.
These missionaries in particular, they have nothing to do with the world of academia. They are untrained, unqualified, ignorant, arrogant individuals who spout ridiculous claims that don't have a shred of credibility amongst actual academics. They don't even read Arabic, and they are literally like blind mice grabbing at whatever they can, trying to concoct a completely bizarre narrative and then preaching some garbled rubbish to their choir, who obviously have no clue, as to right and wrong about the religion of Islam. And therefore, I have had nothing to do with that world, and I shall have nothing to do with that world, because it is a complete and utter waste of time for me. I engage with real academics. That has been my methodology, and it will inshallah continue to be. Unfortunately, I have to break that rule for this one lecture. And I have to do this because of their intentional hijacking of my name and their usage of a snippet of a clip that was meant for a completely different topic, and their claim over and over again that somehow my 10-second or 1 minute or whatever long clip is actually in accordance with their understandings, and it is proving what they are trying to say. Now, even when they first started using my name, I was quiet about this, because really it's not in my nature to stoop to the level of every single barking dog. I just don't do that. I don't respond to stupidity and foolishness. As well, scholars that I look up to, scholars that are older than me, wiser than me, they advise me that the clip should be removed because it can easily be misunderstood. And so I followed their advice and I continued my lectures. But this group persisted in using my name, taking my words out of context, and unscrupulously pretending that my interview was actually in accordance with what they're trying to preach about Islam. And because they have repetitively done this, I will have to break my rule and just for once give these idiots the smackdown that they deserve, to show them, because they have no integrity, to show them that they are utter fools who should not and cannot speak about the religion of Islam, because they are a disgrace to the field of academia. They are untrained, ignorant people who don't have a clue about what it really is that they're talking about. Now, again, for this lecture, because I had decided to basically explain, how they're misusing my name. And so because of this, yesterday, I decided to do this yesterday, by the way. Yesterday, I spent maybe 4 or 5 hours, and that is it, to go over some of their material. And then, inshallah ta'ala, from after this lecture, I'm going to move on. And I spent literally just a few hours gathering what I could about some of these individuals. And I'll present what I have here just to demonstrate why it is an utter waste of someone like myself's time, who I consider, inshallah, and my reputation is known to all of you, I consider myself to be an academic. I consider myself to be somebody who researches everything. I mean, wallahi, listening to people like Jay makes me realize why there are still people who believe the earth is flat,
أولا نحن الآن في أين؟ نذهب إلى مطار الشارقة، نريد أن نذهب إلى الصين بالطيارة. واضح؟ ركزوا معي. هذه الأرض إذا قلتم أنها تدور، إذا خرجنا من مطار الشارقة برحلة دولية إلى الصين، الأرض تدور صح؟ طيب لو وقفت الطائرة في السماء، أليست الصين تأتي؟ صح ولا لا؟ تدور، تأتي الصين ولا ما تأتي؟ طيب لو كانت الشمس الأرض تدور هكذا، لو تمشي الطيارة ما أدري كم تمشي، لن تستطيع أن تلحق الصين، لأن الصين تدور وأنت تدور، ولن تستطيع أن تصل إلى الصين لأنك تدور وهي تدور، فكيف تصل إلى الصين؟
So this cleric is called Sheikh Al-Kabari.
So do you understand why it is insulting for someone like me to have to get involved with such a crowd? It's not I really feel demeaned to have to even respond. These people do. It's literally as if they cut off 80-90%, of the evidence that they have. They take the little bit that they have, they add their own imagination, and they construct an alternative universe that has nothing to do with the reality. And that's why I needed to make this video, to distance myself from this intellectually bankrupt lot. I have rarely come across somebody who is more vulgar, vile, foul-mouthed, noxious, repugnant, depraved excuse of a preacher. Whatever he is, David Wood, it is obvious to any person of faith, is not a man of God. Nobody who has an iota of humility in front of his Creator, nobody who wishes to claim to follow any prophet of God would ever be so vulgar as this particular individual. I have had the great fortune of having plenty of Christian friends and colleagues in my life. Catholics, Presbyterians, Methodists, Evangelicals, Baptists, many different types of people. And the fact is, as everybody knows, that you will find, generally speaking, humility amongst the followers of Jesus Christ. The Quran itself mentions this. You will find, a compassion. You will find a glimmer of the manners of Jesus Christ. And both Muslims and Christians agree that Jesus Christ was a loving, compassionate, humble, caring person, somebody who everybody around him loved. This person, David Wood,
claims to be preaching the gospel of Jesus. And I don't know how to say this, like he is so uncouth. It is a shame. Wallahi, I'm embarrassed that he considers himself to be a follower of Jesus Christ. I'm embarrassed. David Wood does not need anyone else to refute him. His own manners is enough of a refutation of the character of this individual. Al-khabithatu lil-khabithina wal-khabithuna lil-khabithat. By their fruits you shall know them. You have no reason to even worry about refuting the likes of David Wood, because he is a refutation of himself. Anybody who is attracted to that level of depravity, frankly, I have nothing to offer, because he speaks exactly of what he wants, and so enough of a refutation is simply to let him be.
Wait يا ياسر قادي. لوين بدك تروح? Where do you want to go? I think you are confusing Dr. David Wood with your vulgar, filthy, nasty prophet of Islam. Read with me. It was narrated from Ubay ibn Ka'b that a man boasted in an ignorant manner of his tribal lineage. So meaning there was a Muslim who was very proud about the pre-Islamic period, al-Jahiliyyah. So Ubay ibn Ka'b, told him to go bite his father's male member, the penis of his father. And he did not use a metaphor. The people looked askance at him, so they were shocked at Ubay ibn Ka'b. What are you saying to this man? Are you really insulting him and tell him to go bite your father's penis? So Ubay said to the people, I can see what you are thinking, and I can only say this, that the messenger of Allah, Muhammad, instructed us. So Muhammad instructed his Sahaba, like Ubay ibn Ka'b. Let's see what Muhammad said. Now here's Muhammad, the one talking. If you hear someone boasting in an ignorant manner of his tribal lineage, then tell him to bite his father's male member, the penis of his father, and do not use a metaphor, Muhammad said. And you can find this hadith in Ahmad, and it's classed as Hassan. So it's an accepted Hassan hadith. And this is a very well-known and accepted hadith from the mouth of Muhammad. Do you see it? So who is the vile and disgusting and vulgar person? It's your prophet, who needed to insult someone's father by commanding him to go bite the penis of his father. Imagine if someone would have said that today to you. What would you do to him? You would give him at least a black eye for insulting your father. What about vulgar and filthy, insulting, disgusting language from the Prophet of Islam? So Yasir Qadhi, stop confusing your filthy prophet with someone like Dr. David Wood.
Hello, Dr. J. Smith. Now it is the 26th of November. A few minutes ago, Dr. Yasir Qadhi put out a chat number 10, which was a response to J. Smith and David Wood, a response to what we have been saying concerning him, and quoting him, as he says, illegally quoting and using his name. It was about 51 minutes long, and what I'd like to do now, since I've just seen it and I took 2 pages of notes on it, 1 and 2, I'd like to go through some of the things he said, and I would like to respond. This is one of the great things about YouTube. He uses YouTube. He has, 388,000 subscribers. I don't know how many people have watched this. There will be tens of thousands, I'm sure, that will watch this, and many Muslims will say, finally, Yasir Qadhi has really shut down Jay Smith and David Wood and Daniel Brubaker. It turns out that he actually confronted all 3 of us. Although he didn't really say much about David Wood, it was mostly myself and Daniel Brubaker that he confronted. But it was fascinating. Let me just go through, as I go down through these notes, and I have some things to pull back. One of the, as I said, as I was starting to say, the YouTube is a terrific vehicle because you can get peer reviewed immediately. And in some ways, what Yasir Qadhi has done is a peer review. He's peer reviewing us, and now I'm going to peer review him. We'll go right back at him. This doesn't have to take months to write it in a journal like it does in academia. Because it's on YouTube, we can go immediately. And I hope those of you who are watching that you do hear what I'm saying. Take it on board. There's an awful lot of words that Yasir Qadhi used that were quite strong. I'm not going to use those kind of words. I don't think it's appropriate. Certainly, I don't feel towards him like he feels towards us. He called us evil. He said that we're untrained, we're unqualified, we're a disgrace to academia. And then he says, I'm going to just do a smackdown here. I'm going to do a smackdown. And I was fascinated because I was waiting for the smackdown to happen. I didn't really see it happen. I really didn't understand what his problem was because he did actually go to our material on him. Fascinating. I'm going to respond to what he said about me in particular. There were 3 areas that he confronted me with. I'm not going to talk about what he said about David. I'll let David, I'm sure he's going to put up his own video tomorrow. And as far as Dan Brubaker, I'll just say one thing about Dan Brubaker, what he said about Dan Brubaker, and then I'll let Dr. Brubaker do his response to that. And then I'm going to come up with some questions at the very end. So let's go ahead and get started. And what did he say? Well, fascinating. He didn't go to my material on him. He didn't go to the videos where I'm talking about the Qiraat in the Ahruf. He didn't go to any, and there's been a lot up there since June 8th, since that interview that he had with Muhammad Hijab. I have put up quite a few videos, long videos, 2-hour videos. So why didn't he go to that material since it pertained to him specifically, since he thought, since this was this material, since this I would assume is what he would want to respond to, because I'm still waiting for his response to much of what we have pulled out. See, it's these books right here. There's the Qiraat. Do you see them here? I have 8 of them. 8 of these right here. All these 8, not one of them is the same. Oh, here, a 9th. Put that on the top. This is the Hafs. And I would like him to respond now to the claims that he made in that interview. Yeah, you're right. It was only the last 25 minutes, which he has deleted. And he admitted that he was probably wrong in some of the words he said.
To be fair, I did use language that I regret. And the claim that there are holes in the narrative is employing language that did create confusion. And I apologize. I ask Allah's forgiveness for that. There's simply no excuse. And I learned from my mistakes. And my senior ulama that I look up to asked me to get rid of the interview because it's going to cause more confusion. There was no covering up. I just don't want to cause more confusion. But when these missionaries are persisting to take that clip and then pretend that my topic is somehow related to their incompetency, I have no recourse except to go public and show people that I have nothing to do with these Cretans whatsoever. And I had to waste a few hours just to quickly show you their level of incompetence. And as I said, I swear to you, I have not spent more than 5 hours. And even that, I regret that I had to even spend 5 hours. Can you imagine if somebody actually, dedicated more time to go over their mistakes and show how utterly juhal these people, they're not even worthy to preach a basic course of Islam at the middle school level, much less speak about some of the most advanced issues of ahruf and qira'at and preservation of the Quran. Nonetheless, they're using my clip of the holes in the standard narrative. And yes, I did claim this, and I need to own up to my words or retract or somehow clarify. And I have no problems discussing with anybody who is interested and willing to learn. I do believe that a mainstream opinion, because here's the point, there are multiple interpretations of the ahruf and qira'at, and everybody knows that there's over 40, by now, everybody knows there's over 40 opinions about the ahruf as Suyuti and others mentioned, and I follow another one of them. The one that has become dominant, the one that is now, mainstream, this is what I called the standard narrative, but in reality, there are many standard narratives. Even what I'm holding is a standard narrative. It's just not the one that is most common in our times. And so I am, again, what I don't want to go, there's no need to go into details in the video, and I'm more than happy to discuss with anybody, but I don't mind giving you some examples so that you understand that when I said there are holes in the narrative, I regret the wording, but what I'm trying to say is that there are questions that there's a majority opinion and then there are minority opinions. For example, one of the issues that is the issue of the tawatur of the qira'at. I mean, I believe that the qira'at are mutawatira in their essence and syntax, but not necessarily in their specific choices of each and every rawi, of each and every tariq. And by the way, this was the position, the later position of the giant Ibn al-Jazari. Initially, Ibn al-Jazari said that everything is mutawatir, and then towards the end of his life, he also came to this position, which is basically one of my disagreements with now what is the mainstream. Also, another thing that I disagree with as well is the origins of the differences of each and every tajweed rule, each and every pronunciation of the vowels, right? As maybe anybody who studies the qira'at is aware, there are so many tajweed rules, there are so many ways to pronounce things. So for example, wad-duha, or you can do imala sughra, wad-duha, or you can do imala kubra, wad-duha. You can do it all of these three types, right? Now, did the Prophet ﷺ himself recite it in these three ways, which is what mainstream says? Or did he allow some of the Sahaba to recite in their dialects, and that became accepted, and that is accepted as a part of the Quran as well? I mean, my position is the latter, not the former. And by the way, even Ibn Taymiyyah clearly says that many of these differences, the pronunciation differences, they go back to the Sahaba and to the dialects of the Arabs. Okay, so this is another thing that I might disagree with the majority opinion. I mean, also the development of the orthography of the Mus'haf. Again, if you study the evolution of the ancient Arabic script that was first written down in what is called Ma'il, and then Hijazi, and then Old Kufic, and then Modern Kufic, and then Nasta'liq, and then along the way you have orthographic changes coming. For example, the word qala was typically written back in the day with qaf lam, and later on it started being written by qaf alif lam, right? So again, this is something that I'm advocating, and many scholars of the manuscripts advocate this as well, that there was some spelling changes. I mean, what's the big deal if instead of spelling color like the British spell it, you spell it like the Americans spell it? It's the same word, right? So these are some of the things when I said holes in the narrative, which definitely, I regret. It shouldn't have, made it such a big deal. But yes, there are opinions that I hold that are not the dominant opinion. And every single one of these opinions deals with some minutia, some abstract issue that I respectfully have a position that, alhamdulillah, has precedence. It has scholarly backing. I am not the first, and I'm not the only, and I'm not going to be the last. The problem that happened is that this group of critics, right, these Orientalists and whatnot, they had no clue what I'm talking about. And they took my clip and they exaggerated it as if I am in any way, fashion, or form linked with these idiots and ignoramuses. And that is why I have to make this video. The problem with these critics is that they think they have unearthed something absolutely new that no one before them has ever understood. They exaggerate the notion of qira'at to make them different versions of the Quran. They exaggerate the printings, King Farouk printing and King Fahd printing, and they think these are different versions of the Quran. And here's a point to the Muslim audience, okay? And even if you're not Muslim but you're listening for information about this group of people, I want you to know one simple fact. Each and every bit of information that this group picks that is authentic, that is true, because a lot of it is just mythology or fake. Each and every bit of it that is true, they're finding from within our sources and references, and our ulama, not only were they well aware of these differences, but no one in human history ever considered anything of this to be different versions of the Quran or different competing texts of the Quran. This is sheer lunacy. This is stupidity. The vast majority of these differences are pronunciation. The qira'at themselves, the bulk of the differences are tajweed and pronunciation related. I mean, for example, let me just think of an example. American and British English, right? What's a few words that the Americans and the Brits pronounce differently? I mean, what if an American says, "Can you bring me a glass? Can you bring me a glass of water? Can you bring okay, let me put in garage because that's definitely always an important. Can you bring a glass of water to the garage?" Okay, if an American says that, a Brit says it, how's he going to say it, right? I'm going to try my fake British accent here. Can you bring a glass of water to the garage, right? They speak in a higher pitched voice, right? Glass of water into the garage. You know, there's differences, right? Glass of water to the garage, right? There's a difference there. Is anybody going to say that these are two different versions?
Yes, yes, yes. I am the one who's going to say it. Wait. لوين بدك تروح? To where do you want to go, Ya Yasir Qadhi? You're not going to go away with it that easily. Let me refute what he just said. It has much more to do than only the way pronouncing words. Now let us refute Yasir Qadhi. Now did you catch what he said? According to Yasir Qadhi, it has only differences in the way you pronounce words in dialect. Now let us see if that's true. Yasir Qadhi knows that's a lie from hell. It has not only to do with differences in the way you pronounce certain words or dialects. It has much more than that, and he's lying to you. He is only fooling himself, and he's fooling his Muslim ignorant audience who will only listen and obey. Sami'na wa ata'na. We heard and we obeyed. They don't question what he's saying. They don't do their homework to see if he's lying or not. Let us see if it has only to do with pronouncing certain words, or basically the dialect, the way you say it. Like he said, garage. So let us refute Yasir Qadhi, his lies and deception. Now if we go to the Hafs version, here's an example of an ayah, chapter 37, ayah 12, from the Hafs version. And I know that Yasir Qadhi doesn't like me to call it a version, but I'm going to show you that it is a version. Watch. This is the Hafs an Asim. Hafs an Asim. Let me read the ayah in Arabic. بل عجبت ويسخرون. Translation: but you, O Muhammad, Allah is saying to Muhammad, but you, O Muhammad, wonder. But you wonder while your enemies, they mock. Ajibta. Now pay attention to this very word. Ajibta. Ajibta. You, Muhammad, are shocked. You are wondering. You are amazed while your enemies are mocking you. Now this is a version. Now let me show you a couple of different versions which are contradicting, which are going against the Hafs version. Watch. From the same chapter, from the same ayah. This is Al-Duri version. Al-Duri. Chapter 37, ayah 12. Again, the same chapter, the same ayah. Now this time, it is going to be Allah who is wondering, who is shocked or amazed. Watch. Bal ajibtu. In the end, oh. Bal ajibtu. Not ajibta. Bal ajibtu. And you see here in purple, from the website, what I took it from, they are showing the variant here. Bal ajibtu wa yaskharun. But I, Allah, wonder. Allah saying, I am amazed, I am shocked, while they, the enemies, mock. Did you catch it? Ajibtu. What did the Hafs say? Ajibta. You, Muhammad. But in this case, it's Allah. So you see, Al-Duri is showing the ignorance of Allah. And remember, Yasir Qadhi loves to call us, the Christian apologists, ignoramus. But it is Allah who is an ignoramus. Allah has human attribute. Allah can be ignorant because He does not know. He is shocked. He is amazed. So you see the Quran here in this very version is giving Allah human attributes. Allah is not all-knowing. Allah is an ignoramus. This is not the only version. What about this one? Abu al-Harith, who also goes what the Hafs version is saying. Chapter 37 again, ayah 12. The same chapter, same ayah. Bal ajibtu wa yaskharun. Again, ajibtu versus ajibta in the Hafs version. But I, Allah, wonder. I am amazed. I am shocked while they mock. The third version, Khalaf. The Khalaf version also agrees with the Abu al-Harith and al-Duri verses and against the Hafs version. Same chapter, same ayah. But I, Allah is saying, I wonder while they mock. And these are not only the three ones that are known. They are also, you have the Ishaq version. The Ishaq also agreeing with al-Duri, with Abu al-Harith and Khalaf version. بل عجبت ويسخرون. The Idris version. بل عجبت ويسخرون. And here is a sixth one. Khalid also agrees with al-Duri and so on. بل عجبت. So also the sixth one disagrees with the Hafs. Remember what the Hafs said? بل عجبت. So we have at least 6 different Quran variant, different Arabic Quran versions that disagree with the Hafs. So Muslims, why are you listening to the lies? Why do you accept the lies, the taqiyya, the makr, the deception of people like Yasir Qadhi? Why are you always saying, Sami'na wa ata'na? We heard and we obeyed. Why are you not confronting your imams and shuyukh? What does this say about the majority of Muslims? Ignorance is bliss in Islam. You Muslims don't care about the truth. And the proof is in front of you. So Yasir Qadhi, shame on you. But we know you have no shame because you know it's not only about pronouncing certain words, right? It's not only about the dialect, but it has also differences in meaning, differences in aqidah, in doctrine, theological differences, because this shows that Allah is an ignoramus, but the Hafs version needs to fix that and say that it's about Muhammad. But no, 6 versions disagree with the Hafs. So this is why Christian apologists, this is why we call it versions, different Arabic versions.
That's fine to hear that. I'm glad he's finally admitting that, and I'm glad that that he feels that he had to delete that video. I don't know what good that does, since we all have the video. We can always remind him of it. But fascinating, when he wanted to confront and wanted to see who I was, rather than look at my responses to what he said, or even my responses to the Qira'at and the Aruf, because that's the information that we're actually confronting him with, he went to some odd videos that were from a year and a half or even longer that I had done in London. These are ones that I had done as I was traveling through. One of them was over a year ago, back in 2019. And he started with that one. He just showed a snippet, which has nothing to do with the subject at hand. And what he must have done, he must have just dove in and then dove out. He didn't actually look at the context of what I was saying. And this really became apparent when we get to the next section. He refers to the 9 provinces that I refer to. Now, it's fascinating because if you look at my videos from this year, 2020, I don't talk about 9 provinces. I only talk about 5. And the 5 provinces I refer to are Yathrib, or now what is now known as Medina, Mecca, Basra, Kufa, and Damascus. They mentioned those. He wanted to go to these 9. A year and a half ago, I did talk about these 9, and he just went on to a tirade and started laughing and cajoling. He says, Jay doesn't even know the names. Oh dear, did he even realize that I'm using modern names? I always use modern names so people know what I'm talking about. Of course, I did use the word for Baghdad in the 7th century, or by the time that Muhammad would have been living. In the 7th century, it was known as Ctesiphon. No one would... if I were to say Ctesiphon, then of course none of you knew what I was talking about, because you don't use that today. So I use Baghdad because that is the name that was introduced by the Abbasids in 749 or 750, the mid-8th century. That's true. remember, if you want to. But then he went to really confronted me on the word Cairo, that I shouldn't have used this because the name that exists that time was Kahira. Well, that's not true either. That is not the name that was used in the 7th century. And I'm a little surprised that he made this huge error. Kahira is actually the Arabic equivalent to what we would say Cairo today. But Kahira, if you look at it, it was introduced in 968 by the Safavids. But what's fascinating, that is the 10th century, and he did say the 10th century that Cairo was introduced. No, but then he said the word I should have used is Kahira. No, Kahira is Cairo. It's the Arabic equivalent to Cairo. What would have been the name in the 7th century? Fustat. Fustat is the name that was used in that city. Because remember, it used to be called Memphis, but Fustat is the garrison town outside of the city that the Muslims, or in this case, those who took over and conquered Egypt, that's the word that they would have used, the name. So he even got that completely wrong. Now, I'm not going to sit there and berate him for that, but I'm going to ask him to be careful when he's quoting me. Make sure he quotes me correct. At least we do that with him. Whenever we quote him, we actually film it and put it up there so you can see. And make sure that you understand that when I'm talking about an ancient city, I'm not going to use that name unless I'm specifically referring to the name of the ancient city. I use the modern name today. And that's why it's important that he makes sure that he doesn't put up in this case, it was a straw man, and then he just tried to confront the straw man. Finally, he gets to the holes in the narrative. Finally, he got to this in the last few minutes. The very thing we've been waiting for him to talk about. And he said, listen, I made a mistake. And that's why he deleted it. He shouldn't have used certain words. And the only thing he's really talking about is the word holes in the narrative. That's all he wants to talk about. Because then he goes on and says that the tajweed new rules, these are nothing more than vowel pronunciations. And today, that's true. They are vowel pronunciation, but they're in a written text. The 5 dots and the 3 vowels are to give you the delineation of which are the different ways to pronounce it. And see, what he's not thinking through, and this is what an awful lot of Muslims have not yet come back to us on, when Al-Bukhari, look at Al-Bukhari, volume 6, book 61, hadith number 510, when it says there that these Medinians who had gone up to the battle there in Azerbaijan, and when they were gone to the mosque and they were fighting alongside other Muslims who had come from places in Iraq, Basra, and Kufa, and also Syria, Damascus, they were all fighting together, and they would go to the mosque and they would then recite the Quran. And as these Hijazis from the Hijaz, that's the central part of Arabia where Mecca and Medina are located, when they heard the Quran being recited by these others, they heard different pronunciations, and they went to blows. They started fighting them. So Hudayfa has to come back. He runs back down to Medina, and he insists that Uthman standardize the text so they don't have many different Qurans, like supposedly the Christians and Jews have many different Bibles, is what they're saying there. Now, what's fascinating, what does Uthman do? He acknowledges it. He gets Zayd ibn Thabit to then rewrite the Quran in the Qurayshi dialect. This is the dialect that they claim, and we're coming out with lots of ideas about what this Qurayshi dialect is. Nonetheless, they're claiming that he then wrote it in the Qurayshi dialect, handed it to Uthman, and then Uthman sent it to 5 cities: Basra, Baghdad, not Baghdad, Basra, Kufa, and Damascus in the north, and Mecca and Medina there in the south, in the Hijaz. And then he took all the other manuscripts. Are you listening to this, Yasir? Dr. Qadhi, are you listening now? He took all the other manuscripts and burned them. So now stop and think. How can you burn pronunciation? Unless, of course, you have the dots and the vowels. You have to have the dots and vowels to be able to see a difference in pronunciation. If you're burning manuscript, you're burning paper. You're burning books. Help me here. Come back with me here. I've not seen any Muslims really respond to this. And this is something that Yasir Qadhi just said it really flippantly right off the top. This is nothing more than vowel pronunciation. This is nothing more than dialects. Okay, so they're dialects, but they have to be written on a paper. They have to be written in a dialectical form. And these dialectical forms have to have 5 dots and 3 vowels to understand the different dialect in a written text. That is what this is. And the first one is this guy right here, Ibn Amir. This is the first of those to be written in a dialectical form that is different. And he is from Damascus. And his date is 736. This is the next century. This is right well into the next century. And all these other ones, the 30 that are made official, they go all the way up until 912, the 10th century. So from the 8th century up until the 10th century, you have all these different dialectical forms that are written using the 5 dots and the 3 vowels. Yasir Qadhi, this could not have been a this could not have been just dialectical differences in the 7th century, because there were no dots and vowels to make it understandable in a written text. Okay, are you help me out with this, because this is something I've yet to see Muslims really respond to. How do you burn, therefore, pronunciation if it's just oral? Obviously, this is not oral. These are written. You burn books, you burn paper. That means it had to be written differently, and we know that these different writings do not even appear for another century. Well, 80 years, okay? And then he says this is nothing more than different ways of saying wa or water. Wa. Well, okay, if that is so, you can pronounce it different, but how do you write that in a Quranic text? How do you write it in the Arabic script? Wa versus water. How do you do that in the 7th century when there's no dots and no vowels? Bingo. I think that's what I'm asking you. Then he talks about the fact that the corruption of Yale. Now, I don't want to go too much further, because I would like to ask a number of questions, and I'd like to finish off, and I hope, Yasir Qadhi, you do respond to the questions I'm going to finish off with. You've only finished, I just only seen it a number of minutes ago. It's actually almost about an hour now since you finished you did your chat number 10. And I think that you've misconstrued what I've been saying. You also just dived into a video without looking at the context, and you didn't understand possibly that we were actually making a joke about throwing him into the Nile. And that also, that it was fascinating that if by doing that, would you throw away? And the question we were asking is, if you're throwing him into the Nile, does that get rid of them? No, it doesn't, obviously, because we were making your very point for you, and that is there are thousands and tens of thousands of Qurans all over the world. Throwing him into the Nile does not do the job. Here's the questions. When and let me start with this question first. Here's the first question. These many qira'ats, which one of these is the one that's in heaven? Which one of these is the one that was revealed to Muhammad between 610 and 632, that 22-year period? Which one of these, and I just have 8 here, there's 30 of them, actually I have 9 with this one here. Which one of these is the one that Uthman commissioned Zayd ibn Thabit to write in 652? And that's what Muhammad Hijab was asking you. When he put his hand out there and he said, I'm giving you a blank sheet of paper, a blank mushaf. What Quran, which qiraat, which aruf are you going to put there? He wasn't talking about pronunciation orally. He didn't want you to tell you what an oral pronunciation. He wanted to know what you were going to write there. Is it going to be the Hafs? Is it going to be the Warsh? Listen, just between these two right here, there are 5,000 differences. So which one of these? Is it the Hafs? Is it the Warsh? Is it Ibn Amir? Is it the Qalun? Ibn Kathir? Al-Qusay? Khalaf? Shoba? Al-Duri? Those are the ones I have here. Which one of those comes from heaven? Which one of those actually was the one revealed to Muhammad? That's the first question. Please answer that question. Okay, stop calling us names and all kinds of vitriol. That's not going to help. It doesn't help you academically. It doesn't help your authority before the world. And listen, most people see that when you go to vitriol, when you start using ad hominem, it usually means that you've lost the debate. And ironically, you really didn't talk about this. You didn't look at my videos on this. You didn't ask and even ascertain what I'm saying about the Qira'at. You never looked at one of those talks that I've done on it. And I've done 10, 20 of them already. Well, actually, since June 8th, probably only about 10 of them since June 8th. Number 2, what is it that happened to you at Yale University? Exactly what crisis did you go through? And why is it this idea that you have that if you go to Yale or Rice University, that these are not legitimate places? You got your doctorate there, so are you saying your doctorate's not legitimate if you say that you got corrupted by Yale? Please help us understand that. You talk about, and I remember in the video you said that there was there are certain, you have a respect for the Quran. The Muslims have a respect for the Quran, and there's a line beyond which you don't go. A red line you refer to. We don't go beyond this red line. Well, we don't have red lines here in America, and you should know that. You live in Houston, you should know. You were at Yale. There is no red line at Yale. You can ask any question you want because that's what has been asked of our Bible. So I'm asking you these questions. What red line is it you can't go beyond, and why is it you weren't able to answer Muhammad Hijab in 25 minutes? He had to ask you twice. What are you going to write? Which one of these qira'ats is the one in heaven, the eternal one? Well, the obvious answer is none of them are, because none of them, there is no diacritical marks. There was no vowelization for the one that's preserved in heaven. That was written, that was created by man. That was created by men after the 7th century. Bingo. Put that under your hat and see how you're going to run with it. Then thirdly, what are the holes you were referring to? If you said I shouldn't have used that word, what holes exactly were you referring to? Because you actually were meaning something, and I would suggest those holes are the fact that for 1,000 years now, you Muslims have known about this. Listen, 736, 738, 770, all the way up to 812, all the way up to Ibn Mujahid, 936. Oh, don't stop there. Can you see? We're talking about over 1,000 years now you've had this material. And you did mention that for 1,000 years, this has been the most difficult question to answer. If it's the most difficult question to answer, then why all this vitriol against us when we ask the question? All we're doing is asking the question that should have been answered 1,000 years ago and should have been answered by you while you were at Yale. You've had 25 years to come up with a better answer than all of the Qurans are. All the qira'ats are the Quran. That was your final answer after 25 minutes by Muhammad Hijab finally insisting. All 30 of them? Do you realize the team in London has already found 93,000 differences? Have you looked at all of those 93,000 differences? And that's just looking at 23 of the 30. They've already come up with 93,000 differences. The team in Australia has already found 5,000 differences between these two. Have you looked at all 5,000 of these? And are you saying that all those differences that do change the meaning, that do change the theology, that do in some cases change the practice, that these are all in the one that's in heaven? Can you see what we're this is the line that we know that, listen, this doesn't make sense to us listening. And you might say, well, that's because we're ignorant. Okay, call us ignorant, call us idiots, like you love to do. You're going to call me an idiot for even asking this question. But see, we have to ask this question because we do live in the West, and because this is causing so much damage to your religion, and it's causing so much damage to your murtads that you got so upset with them for even asking the question. And you're saying, do not disagree with us. Well, that's the red line. You're saying, do not go beyond this red line. You're saying to all these other murtads, God bless them for asking the question, because they need to know. They need to know, why is it that you have been saying for years and years and years and years, and you have said this for years, that there is not one word, there is not one letter that is different. You're the one that said that, Yasir Qadhi. You continue to say it. Or let me ask you this right now. Do you still believe that not one word or one letter has been changed? Help me here. Are you now going to apologize for that, for the many times you've said that? You have said that so many times on video. I noticed you didn't say it an hour ago. Why is it you're no longer saying it? Because you now know that you cannot say that. See, that's a red line that now has stopped you. That's a red line that you are now stopped. And remember what you did say in that interview on June 8th. The rest of the world has come leaps and bounds in the last 100 years. And they're looking at us like an emperor with no clothes. Until you answer these questions, you do, to us, look like an emperor with no clothes. Your own words, back at you. Please, get some clothes on. Start answer these questions. Stop talking about this red line which you can't go beyond. And stop saying that you have to take my class, then we'll do a deep dive, but you couldn't even answer Muhammad Hijab there in 25 minutes. And then I'm going to end with this. I want to know from you, Yasir Qadhi, when is the first complete Quran that's just like this one here, not the English translation, I'm talking about the Arabic. The first complete Arabic Quran, all 114 surahs, when is the earliest that you can find? Give me a date. Tell me, where is that ubiquitous Quran that you're always talking about? Where is this Uthmanic manuscript that you're always referring to? Where is this manuscript that's 114 surahs and that every word and every letter is exactly like the one I have here? And I'm not talking about the qira'ats. I'm not talking about the ahruf now. I'm talking about the razm, the skeletal text, the consonantal text, what Dan Brubaker is coming up with. And he is the first to publish this. So don't sit there and wipe him across the table and say that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This is the first man that's had the courage to write and publish. And that's why you only have vitriol to throw at him. When you throw vitriol and ad hominem and the kind of words you use against Dan, against me, and against David, I can pretty well see that you really don't have answers to these questions. You really don't have answers. And all you're doing is throwing aspersions against us, the messenger. Okay, you now have been peer-reviewed. I hope I've done an adequate job of looking at the 51 minutes that you took. It's taken me about 34 minutes to respond to it. I'd love to hear a response to you. You said you're not going to have anything more to do with us, and you've done your bit. That's like somebody saying and yelling at somebody, and then they run away and say, no, I don't want to have to answer that. We got that at Speaker's Corner all the time. Muslims, when I would be on the ladder, they would come up to me, they would yell some stupid, idiotic things, call me all kinds of names, and then they run off because they didn't want my response. You're acting like that. You're going to have to respond. You're going to have to respond to these questions. You're going to have to respond to huge amount of stuff that I have on the Qira'at. Look at my video that I put up a month ago, 2 hours long, and look at every one of those 5 canonizations that I went through referring to Shadi Nasr's material, and I want you to answer to every one of those. I'd like to see you do it. You say you're the world authority of this, or one of the world's authority on this. You're the one that has now gone public saying that there is not a problem, that it is completely preserved, that there has not been one dot. I'm sorry, you don't say one dot. Not one word, not one letter has been changed. Now, stand by it, hold to it, respond to these questions, and come back with me, and let's start this discussion. Okay, here I am on the 26th, Thursday the 26th, Thanksgiving, a Christian holiday, thanking God for what he has given us. And I thank God for you, Yasir. You're a great man. I really enjoyed that video that you did back on June 8th. I thought you were being honest. You really came across as being honest. You really did. And I love you for that. But you did make some huge, glaring admissions there. Those admissions you tried to shut down. You shut down all the comments. I just went up as soon as this happened, about an hour. It's not been over an hour. It's about an hour and a half now. I went up there and I wanted to look and see how many people are responding. And guess what? You shut the comments down again. In the very video where you sit there and attacking us right, left, and center, calling us all kinds of names, you shut down the comments again. I have never done that with my videos. If you if you can't take it, don't dish it out. If you can't take the vitriol, then don't dish out the vitriol. Make sure that you let people respond to you. Make sure that you look at the right videos and look at the right material and understand that we're learning from you. It's great that we're having a discussion. Let's make sure that you do come back on us, and let's see that you can answer these last 4 questions that I asked. Let me repeat them again. So which one of these is in heaven? Which one of these qira'ats is in heaven? Which one isn't? Which one are you going to choose? And don't say all of them, because they're all so different. And you can't have many different ones in an eternal tablet that has never been created. And what happened at Yale? What really happened at Yale that you say corrupted you? Or that it corrupts people? Maybe you're saying it generically. Where are these holes that you're referring to? What holes exactly are you talking about when you said you used the wrong word? Okay, so what did you mean when you talked about those holes in the narrative? And do you still believe that the Quran, this Quran here, has never changed? Not one word, not one letter has ever changed in 1400 years. Do you still believe that? Are you still saying that? Or now you're changing that? And you now admit that there has no proof. It has not been completely preserved. That there has been all kinds of human manipulation in the last, I'd say 1300 years, not 1400 years. And then lastly, where is that first Quran? Where is that Uthmanic manuscript? Where is that first complete Quran that's exactly like the Qurans we have today? The Hufs that was referred to, that was chosen in 1924 in Cairo, 1936 in Egypt, 1985 by King Fahd there in Saudi Arabia. Where is that first one that it's exactly like that? What manuscript are you talking about? Is it the Topkapi? Is it the Samarkand? Is it the Ma'il? Is it the Petropolitanus? Is it the Husseini manuscript in Egypt? Or is it the Sana'a? Or is it some other one? Help me here. Come back to me here. Let's keep this open. Don't run away from me now. Please, let's make sure that we come to some conclusion on these questions. Okay then, this is Jay. Here in my office. Having watched your video, now you watch mine. And let's keep this discussion going. All right. God bless you. This is Jay then. Over and out.
Before I conclude, I do have to address, my Muslim brothers and sisters that, listen, first and foremost, ask Allah's forgiveness for any mistake that I have made. I am human in the end of the day. And preaching and teaching and speaking so much, sometimes I obviously slip up. I say things I shouldn't say. The wording I use was definitely unwise, and I owned up to this on Facebook and Twitter multiple times, and I explained and clarified that what I'm talking about is ahruf and qira'at, and even then I shouldn't have used that wording, and what these people are talking about is the preservation of the Quran and versions of the Quran. I mean, a'udhu billah. So there's nothing to do with that. So if you, dear Muslim, have no idea about these topics, then alhamdulillah, don't worry about it. It is enough for you to know that the Quran, alhamdulillah, is proven to be preserved, that the thousands of manuscripts around the globe, alhamdulillah, they do nothing except to affirm and verify.